The story begins, ominously titled Chapter 1, Death and Reincarnation. An alarm clock blares at 7 a.m., signaling the start of another ordinary day. A man, Satoru Mikami, groggily wakes up. He reflects on a strange dream, pondering if his dissatisfaction with his current life is manifesting his weird wishes. Satoru quickly takes back his fleeting thoughts of discontent when his junior colleague, Tamura, proudly introduces his lovely fiancée Satori. Satoru can't help but feel a pang of unfairness. Tamura asks to speak with his senpai about wedding plans, and Satoru internally grumbles about his junior showing off in front of him, a man not fated for love. Tamura's fiancée, Satori, introduces herself, admitting she's nervous. Satoru acknowledges Tamura as a splendid kohai but finds him hard to hate. Tamura, ever cheerful, insists on treating his senpai as thanks for his impolite request. As Satoru resigns himself to wishing his colleagues happiness, chaos erupts. A man yells to move aside, and Satoru is shocked to see him brandishing a kitchen knife. Without a second thought, the assailant lunges towards Tamura. Satoru cries out his friend's name and shoves him out of harm's way. Satoru takes the full force of the attack, crying out in pain as the assailant flees the scene, leaving chaos in his wake. Tamura rushes to his fallen senpai. Satoru, lying on the ground, feels a burning heat spread across his back and grimly realizes he's been stabbed. As Tamura panics, Satoru tries to comfort him, telling him not to make a sad face. But as he feels his body growing cold, a strange, emotionless voice announces confirmation complete. Constructing a body that does not require blood. Tamura is confused, hearing his senpai's strange words about not needing blood and wondering about the inorganic, computer-like voice he just heard. In his final moments, Satoru has a desperate, urgent request for Tamura. If he dies, Tamura must take care of his PC by throwing it in the bath to destroy all the data. The request is so typically senpai that Tamura is momentarily stunned. Tears streaming down his face, Tamura confesses that he only wanted to show off to his senpai today. Satoru thinks to himself that he already knew and has forgiven his friend. His last thought is a plea for Tamura to make Satori happy and to take care of his PC. As his life fades, Satoru reflects on his unremarkable existence as a 37-year-old virgin. He laments that if there's an afterlife, he'll be more predatory. A voice confirms, acquiring skill, predator, success. He muses on the saying that a virgin at 30 becomes a sage, so at nearly 40, he should be a great sage. The voice chimes in, acquiring unique skill, sage. Evolving. The evolution is a success. The unique skill, sage, becomes great sage. Even in his dying moments, Satoru is amazed. Satoru's consciousness screams in protest, thinking this is all some unfunny joke. He feels death creeping in, remarking to himself that it's unexpectedly not as lonely as he had thought it would be. Everything fades to black. A disembodied consciousness is left wondering where it is. He questions what happened, remembering the stabbing while protecting Tamura. He wonders if he was saved and is now in a hospital bed. He tries to assess his surroundings but can't see or hear anything. He thinks he should try to call a nurse. Panic sets in as he realizes his limbs aren't responding. He fears he's paralyzed or, even worse, that his arms and legs are gone entirely. After a struggle, something gives. A sudden lurch, a squishy, bouncing motion. He moved, but it was a movement completely alien to a human body. He begins to take stock of his new existence. Sight, hearing, and smell are gone. Only touch remains. He feels something like grass beneath him. Curious, he tries to taste it, but the grass simply melts and is absorbed into his form. The chilling thought strikes him. Where is his mouth? The full, horrifying realization hits him. He tries to calm down and confirm his appearance, but the truth is undeniable. This isn't even human anymore. He lets out a sigh of resignation. His body jiggles and bounces. After some thought, he comes to a simple, yet world-altering conclusion. Is that so? Is that so? He finally confirms his new form, a simple, round, gelatinous blob. A slime. He can't accept it, protesting that this must be some kind of joke. Despite his initial denial, Satoru Minami couldn't escape the facts. His streamlined, elastic body that dissolves and absorbs plants, after being killed, he had been reincarnated into a slime. He begins to explore his new surroundings, a dark cave. He stretches and bounces along, getting a feel for his new form. Time passes, and he has long since accepted that he is a slime. He's gotten used to his elastic body, which self-regenerates from any bump or scrape. He also has no need to sleep or eat, and feels neither heat nor cold. However, there is one problem that he can't solve. He is incredibly lonely. To pass the endless, boring time, he started eating the grass he found in the cave. He starts to wonder where all the grass he ate is gone, since he hasn't pooped yet. To his utter shock, a voice actually answers him. The voice explains that the items are stored inside the unique skill Predator as stomach sac, and that less than 1% of the space is currently used. Startled, he demands to know who is speaking. He recognizes the synthesized, computer-like voice from before. The voice replies that this is the effect of his unique skill, Great Sage, which has now adapted to be able to answer his questions. He recalls acquiring the Great Sage skill as he was dying. Curious, he asks what skills actually are. The voice of Great Sage explains that when one's growth is recognized by the world, they will occasionally obtain a skill. So Great Sage and Predator are his skills. Although he doesn't fully understand it, he accepts that this is just how this new world works, and he sinks into a feeling of joyfulness. Thrilled to finally have someone to chat with, he gets a bit too carried away while exploring and takes a tumble right into what is probably an underground lake. He panics, thinking he's going to die again right after being reincarnated. He asks Great Sage how painful it is to suffocate to death, but the skill calmly informs him that a slime's body does not require oxygen. Relieved that he's not in pain, his slime brain cells formulate a new strategy. He imagines swallowing a large amount of water and then propelling himself by shooting it out as a water jet. He puts his plan into action, shooting a powerful jet of water from his body, which propels him out of the lake. The jet of water sends him flying through the air. As a result of this action, he acquires the skill hydraulic propulsion. Suddenly, a new deep voice echoes in his mind, startling him. "Can you hear me, little one?" The voice remarks that it almost peed itself. He wonders who is speaking to him. He knows it's not the voice of Great Sage. This is bad. He's getting nervous. This is the first actual conversation he's having since reincarnating as a slime. He decides he has to be friendly. But he panics, realizing he has no way to reply since he can't produce a voice. The mysterious voice tells him to just reply, but he mentally lashes out, calling the inconsiderate speaker a baldy. The voice ominously repeats the word, baldy, and laughs, asking if the little slime wants to die. The slime is shocked that his thoughts were heard. The voice explains that this is telepathy. The slime quickly apologizes, explaining that he never expected to be able to speak with anything other than his skill by thought. He then explains his situation. He is unable to see. The mysterious voice seems to understand, saying it's hard to converse if he can't see. The voice offers to help him see, but warns him not to be scared when he sees its appearance. The voice explains that to solve the slime's blindness, he must learn to use a skill called magic perception. It tells him this world is filled with magic essence, and if he can learn to perceive it, he will be able to see and hear. The voice notes that this is complicated, but with this skill, he'll understand the world around him. Though it sounds complex, the slime decides it's worth a try. As he concentrates, he begins to sense something floating all around him. The voice of the world announces the successful acquisition of the extra skill, magic perception, preparing him for his first real look at this new world. Great Sage suggests activating itself at the same time as magic perception in order to organize the large amount of new information. The slime agrees, eager to finally see. He activates the skill, and for the first time, the world is revealed to him. He can see the vast, open cave around him through waves of magic particles. He can see. He marvels at the sight of the cave and the strange plants. The mysterious voice says, "Seems like you did it." The slime thanks him, and the voice declares it is time for introductions. The voice reveals his true form, a colossal, terrifying dragon. He roars, "My name is Storm Dragon Veldora." The slime is terrified, exclaiming, "Holy Mother of God, isn't this a dragon?" Veldora reminds him that he told him not to be scared and laughs, boasting that he is one of the 4 dragon kind in this world. The slime notes that although Veldora's appearance is scary, the dragon is unexpectedly approachable and chatty. Veldora correctly identifies the slime as a reincarnated person from a different world. Veldora explains that while people from this world occasionally reincarnate, Cases like the slimes, coming from a different world, are very rare. He adds that such people seem to get abilities that they wish for. The slime realizes this must be why he obtained skills like Great Sage and a Predator. He perks up at the idea that there might be other Japanese people here. Veldora immediately picks up on his loneliness and asks if he's planning to leave so soon. The slime asks Veldora if he is unable to move from his spot. Veldora confirms this, stating he was sealed there 300 years ago by Yusha, a hero, and has been bored out of his mind ever since. Veldora explains that the hero, who looked like a powerless girl, was incredibly strong. She sealed him using the unique skills, Absolute Severance, and Infinity Prison. The slime is shocked, wondering how it could be possible. The slime notes that Veldora seemed almost happy talking about his loss, recounting the hero's features with meticulous detail: snow-white skin, silver-black hair, a small apple-red mouth. Veldora seems to be an observant fellow. Realizing that the fearsome dragon is just lonely, the slime feels a sense of kinship. He's not as frightened anymore. Taking a chance, the slime asks, "Will you become friends with me?" He quickly adds that it's okay if he doesn't want to. Veldora is stunned. What? A slime actually wants to be friends with a storm dragon? Veldora roars, "Are you an idiot? Who said it's not okay?" The slime, taking this as a yes, asks what to do now, while Veldora says he'll think about it. Playing hard to get, the slime declares that he'll become Veldora's friend no matter what, and if that's no good, he'll just leave and never come back. Panicked, Veldora tells him to wait, saying it can't be helped. Veldora extends a claw, and the slime touches it, sealing their new friendship. "I'll become your friend," Veldora says, and the slime replies, "Oh, I'll be in your care." Now that they are officially friends, the slime gets straight to the point. What are they going to do about the seal? Because he obviously needs to save his friend. The slime asks his Great Sage skill how to break Veldora's seal. The answer is blunt. There is no way. It's impossible to destroy the Infinity Prison using physical attacks. The difference in level is too great. Veldora gets a little pouty, telling the slime not to only talk to his own skill. The slime thinks to himself, "Don't get jealous." Veldora explains that his own abilities were sealed within the prison at the same time, so he can't use them. The slime realizes that the seal could possibly be broken if it's analyzed from both the inside and the outside. Veldora asks if the slime is sure, since it will take a long time and delay his plans to meet people from his world. The slime is confident that his Great Sage skill can analyze it, as long as Veldora provides the necessary information from the inside. The slime then makes a very bold suggestion. "Veldora, do you want to come inside my stomach sack?" Veldora is silent for a moment before bursting into laughter. He finds the idea very interesting and agrees to leave everything in the slime's hands. The slime asks if Veldora is just believing him that easily. Veldora replies, "Of course. Compared to staying here and being lonely, breaking the Infinity Prison together with you is much more interesting." As the slime prepares to use his Predator skill, Veldora stops him with an idea. To truly seal their bond as equals, he proposes they give each other a name, a symbol to be embedded into their very souls. Veldora roars in approval. "What a good name. Starting from today, I'll be Veldora Tempest. And as for you," Veldora bestows a name upon the slime. "I'll give you the name Rimuru. You can use Rimuru Tempest as your name." Rimuru accepts his new name with a determined look. Veldora bids him farewell. "Then take care, my friend." Rimuru tells Veldora to try and escape the Infinity Prison from the inside. Veldora promises it won't be long until they meet again. Rimuru activates his unique skill, Predator. The skill envelopes Veldora and the prison, preparing to swallow the legendary dragon whole. With Veldora safely stored in his stomach, Rimuru commands his Great Sage skill to begin analyzing the Infinity Prison. Great Sage confirms. Of course, it's a yes. On this day, a world-shaking event occurred that will be recorded in history. The whole world was shocked. The life signal of the catastrophe-ranked monster, the storm dragon Veldora, had completely disappeared. Meanwhile, the slime that caused this uproar was entirely oblivious. Still in the cave, he practices a new skill he acquired, Water Blade, realizing he'll need to defend himself from monsters. With the chatty dragon gone, Rimuru feels a little bit lonesome, even though he knows Veldora hasn't truly disappeared. He decides it's finally time to leave the cave. He looks towards a light, thinking it might be the exit. He promises to prepare some interesting stories to tell Veldora the next time they meet. Speaking of which, he thinks the name Rimuru sounds familiar, like something from a dream in his previous life. He shrugs it off, deciding it doesn't matter. A new adventure is about to begin. After eating some hypocrite herbs and discovering red ores, the slime is satisfied with its meal and wonders what to do next. The slime comes across a huge door blocking its path and contemplates using its skills, Water Blade or Predator, to get past it. Suddenly, the door starts to creak open on its own. As the rusted door finally opens, a party of 3 adventurers is revealed. A man with long blonde hair notes that the door hasn't been maintained for over 300 years. One of the adventurers, a young woman, expresses her concern that the guildmaster sent them to investigate the sealed cave. Her companion reassures her that there's no need to worry. From a distance, the slime observes them, realizing that they are human adventurers. It considers making contact but hesitates, knowing it can't communicate telepathically like it did with Veldora. The slime decides to give up on making contact for now, concluding that it needs to be able to speak first before appearing in front of humans. It calls its companions to use its concealing technique. The slime watches the adventurers leave, thinking that it will need to become friends with them in the future. It marvels at their fantasy-like skills. The scene flashes back to over 10 days ago in the small bordering nation of Burman Kingdom. A guildmaster is being summoned to discuss the matter of the storm dragon Veldora's disappearance. A minister of the Burman Kingdom, Baron Belliard, addresses the guildmaster, stating that they anticipate demons will become more active. He demands to know what countermeasures the guild has prepared. The man, introduced as Fitz, the Freedom Association branch leader, retorts that they are not volunteers and that devising countermeasures is the nation's responsibility. After dismissing the maids, Fitz tells Baron Belliard to stop joking around, commenting on his pale look and the increase in his white hair. Baron Belliard explains the gravity of the situation. With the power that suppressed the demons gone, nothing can stop their invasion. He points to a map, warning that the surrounding nations near the Jura Forest, including the Eastern Empire, could be conquered in an instant. Fitz agrees to investigate using his own authority, admitting he is also concerned about Veldora's disappearance and revealing that he and Belliard are childhood friends. Returning to the present, the slime is hopping through the cave, pondering that Veldora couldn't have disappeared without a reason and that something must have happened. Suddenly, it comes face to face with a fearsome, black dragon-like snake and is struck with fear. The slime is overwhelmed with shock and fear as the giant black snake looms over it. Taking a closer look, the slime realizes the snake isn't as scary as it first appeared and calms down. The slime compares the snake to Veldora and finds it much cuter. It readies itself for battle, preparing a sure-kill move it perfected during a week of boot camping. The slime confidently unleashes its water blade attack on the snake, striking it directly. Impressed by the power of its water blade, the slime notes that the snake's breath attack also has a strong corrosive power. Just then, the Great Sage skill suggests using Predator to consume the storm snake. The slime asks the Great Sage what predating does. The Great Sage answers that after predating and analyzing a target, it's possible to learn its skills. Without hesitation, the slime consumes the snake. The slime is overjoyed to learn it has acquired the skills, heat sensing, and poison mist breath. The Great Sage adds that it's also possible to mimic the analyzed target. Curious about the mimicry ability, the slime decides to try transforming into the storm snake. Now in the form of the storm snake, the slime notices a swarm of bats and considers what would happen if it ate them. In its snake form, the slime unleashes its newly acquired poison mist breath skill on the swarm of bats, causing them to fall from the air. After consuming the bats and reverting to its original form, the slime acquires the skills blood-sucking and ultrasonic waves. Pleased with its new abilities, it decides to seal away the potent poison mist breath for now, already thinking about its next step. The slime smugly asks the Great Sage if it knows why it chose to predate the bats. The Great Sage confirms the slime's hypothesis. By mimicking the organ that produces ultrasonic waves, it may finally be possible for the slime to speak. The slime finds that learning to speak is harder than expected. It diligently practices pronouncing words, even using the time it would have slept, despite not needing to. While practicing, the slime continues to strengthen itself by fighting monsters. It defeats a giant spider with its water blade skill, and then predates it, acquiring the skills Sticky Silk and Steel Silk. On the third day, the slime finally succeeds in speaking, proudly declaring, "I'm an alien." Overjoyed, it celebrates its success with a great sage, who gives a simple, disinterested response. Having learned to speak, the slime decides it's finally time to exit the cave and start traveling. It feels confident that most demons won't be a problem in a one-on-one fight after all the ones it has defeated. The slime emerges from the darkness of the cave into a bright, sunlit forest and decides to set off on its journey. Finding the forest peaceful, the slime strolls along, happily practicing its pronunciation and new skills like Sticky Silk. As it continues to practice its skills and pronunciation, the slime feels so at peace that it's as if the constant attacks in the cave never happened. The peaceful moment is shattered by a menacing growl. A pack of aggressive direwolves, led by one with a star on its forehead, suddenly appears and surrounds the slime. Confused, the slime watches as the direwolves suddenly start yelping and flee in terror. The slime realizes why the wolves fled as a group of armed goblins emerges from the trees, looking terrified of it. The slime observes about 30 goblins in this world, which isn't surprising since slimes and dragons also exist. It wonders if they are planning to attack. Looking at their frail bodies and tattered weapons, the slime concludes that their attacks probably wouldn't be able to damage it anyway. A goblin speaks, asking what business it has there. The slime is surprised they spoke and asks the great sage how it can understand their language. The great sage explains that magic perception translates the sound waves and that the slime can use its thoughts to communicate. Using this new knowledge, the slime introduces itself for the first time. "It's the first time we've met. I'm a slime, and my name is Rimuru." The goblins are shocked and terrified. The goblins are completely terrified, bowing low and acknowledging Rimuru as a strong one. One of them even shushes his companion for speaking too loudly. Realizing its telepathic thoughts might have been too strong, Rimuru apologizes, admitting it's still not used to adjusting the power. The goblins insist there's no need for an apology. Rimuru asks the goblins what they want, assuring them it has no plans. They explain that their village is nearby, and they came to investigate a strong demon's aura. Rimuru can't sense any strong aura with its magic perception. It asks the great sage, who confirms there are no demons with more magic essence than the individual named Rimuru Tempest in the surrounding area. Rimuru realizes the goblins were talking about its own demonic aura, though it doesn't remember emitting anything. Curious, it asks the great sage to change the viewpoint of its magic perception so it can see for itself. From a third-person view, Rimuru is shocked to see a massive, dark, and terrifying aura leaking from its body. It finally understands why the wolves ran away. Feeling incredibly embarrassed, as if walking around with its fly open, Rimuru quickly retracts the aura. The goblins seem to understand. One of the goblins expresses relief, saying the demonic aura was terrifying. Rimuru laughs it off, pretending it was intentional to keep other demons away. After a pleasant chat, Rimuru accepts the goblins' invitation to visit their village. Thanks to getting used to a magic perception, Rimuru can now understand their speech completely. Rimuru is led to the goblins' village, a small settlement comprised of simple, run-down huts, showing the community's meager existence. Inside a hut, Rimuru is greeted by the village elder, who apologizes for their lack of hospitality. Sensing their desperation, Rimuru gets straight to the point, asking what they need from him. The village elder bows deeply, explaining that he has already heard of Rimuru's hidden strength from his son. He begs Rimuru to listen to their request. Rimuru agrees to hear them out. The elder explains that about a month ago, the dragon god who protected this land, Veldora, suddenly disappeared. As a result, demons who want to expand their turf have started to eye this place. The elder specifies that among the powerful demons are the Fong wolves, a foe so tough that it would take 10 goblins to fight a single wolf. A younger goblin adds that the wolf tribe has 100 members, while their village only has 60 warriors, including females. The younger goblin explains that they are only alive because of his big brother, Ligeru, the strongest warrior in the village who was named by a Majin. The information about the wolves was brought back by Ligeru after he fought them with his life on the line. Rimuru asks if Ligeru is no longer with them. The village elder, filled with sorrow and pride, confirms his son is gone. He pleads that they want to live, if only for the pride of his son, because the fate of the weak is often just death. Taking the situation seriously, Rimuru asks the village elder a crucial question. What would be his reward if he helped their village? Rimuru internally thinks that while it's fine to help them just because he feels like it, their system needs to change. The elder, seeing his chance, declares that they will offer their loyalty. The offer of loyalty strikes a chord with Rimuru, making him feel a sense of nostalgia from his previous life. Just then, the menacing howl of the Fong Wolf tribe echoes from a nearby cliff, sending a wave of shock and fear through the goblins. Panic grips the village. Goblins cry out that it's over, and they're all going to be eaten. With the wounded, women, and children all gathered there is nowhere to run. As the panic spreads, the village elder calmly turns to his people, telling them that there is no need to be afraid. Rimuru, completely unfazed by the howl, turns his attention back to the goblin's plea. He confirms that the wolves are the opponents that need to be defeated next. With newfound resolve, Rimuru makes a grand declaration, formally adopting a new name. Your request, I, Rimuru Tempest, will accept it in Storm Dragon Veldora's stead. The goblins look on in awe. In response to his declaration, all the goblins fall to their knees, bowing their heads in unison before their new protector. The village elder, overcome with gratitude, speaks for all the goblins. Starting from today, we'll become Rimuru-sama's faithful servants. Please give us your protection. The story of the slime and the goblins begins, with their fate now intertwined. Inside a rustic hut, the goblin elder stands grimly over his people. He explains to Rimuru that every single goblin present was grievously injured by the Fong Wolf tribe. One of the wounded goblins weakly calls out to Rimuru. The elder adds that some of them won't survive for much longer. Hearing this, a light bulb goes off in Rimuru's mind. Rimuru begins to wobble and pulsate. The goblin elder, holding a club, looks on in shock, demanding to know what he's doing. Suddenly, one of the bandaged goblins leaps into the air, completely revitalized. The goblin elder stares in utter disbelief at the miraculous recovery. The goblin's wounds are closing at an incredible speed. The elder exclaims that it went well, impressed with what he thinks is Rimuru's regeneration power. However, Rimuru clarifies that he is simply spitting out recovery medicine that he is applying to his own body first. Rimuru explains that this was possible because back when he couldn't see or hear, he passed the time by eating various things, unknowingly consuming many useful raw materials. He elaborates that the great sage identified one of the grasses he ate as Hippocute. By simply mixing the grass juice with magic essence inside his body, he can create recovery medicine. Rimuru announces that because of this ability, he possesses a large supply of this very effective recovery medicine. The healed goblins look at him with awe and gratitude. With the injured healed, the goblins turn to defense. They show Rimuru the wooden fence they've constructed, asking if it's acceptable. Rimuru notes that its strength is worrisome, but they are short on time. To reinforce the flimsy fence, Rimuru unleashes a skill he acquired, sticky silk. The goblins are puzzled by the strange strings now covering their fence. Rimuru explains that it was a skill he seized from the spiders in the cave, and that now, preparations to engage the enemy are almost ready. Meanwhile, under the light of the full moon, the menacing Fong Wolf tribe gathers. Their leader declares that tonight they will exterminate the goblin village as the first step in their conquest of the Great Jura Forest. The pack lets out a synchronized, bloodthirsty howl, their cries echoing through the night. With a final command to his pack, the leader of the Fong Wolves sets off towards the goblin village. The leader snarls, confident in their victory. He tells his pack that the goblins no longer have the evil dragon's protection and orders them to slaughter their enemies to their heart's content. Perched in the trees, goblin lookouts spot the approaching horde. They cry out in alarm, announcing the arrival of the enemy. The fearsome Fong Wolf tribe charges through the forest, a wave of fur and fangs aimed directly at the goblin village. But as they reach the entrance, a lone figure blocks their path. It is Rimuru, who calmly tells the charging wolves to stop right there. One of the younger wolves recognizes Rimuru from a previous encounter. The pack leader, a massive wolf with a prominent horn, eyes the slime skeptically, questioning if this is the demon that emitted a bizarre demonic aura. Rimuru issues a single, clear warning to the wolves: listen, leave now, and you will be spared. The wolf leader scoffs at the warning, mocking Rimuru for being just a slime and dismissing the village's defense as a common fence found in human villages. Believing the wooden fence to be no obstacle, the leader commands the attack. However, The first wolf to charge is violently thrown back, crying out in pain and confusion, leaving the leader stunned. The goblin elder explains from behind the safety of the wall. The wire used to strengthen the fence wasn't ordinary. It was steel silk. The wolf's ferocious charge grinds to a halt. Trapped and tangled in the surprisingly strong steel silk, they are turned into helpless targets for the goblin archers firing from the trees, making it impossible for them to advance. Adding to the humiliation, a goblin warrior armed with a spiked club leaps down to attack a now defenseless wolf, turning the hunter into the hunted right before the pack leader's eyes. The leader of the Fong wolf tribe seethes with rage, finding it impossible to accept that his mighty tribe is being toyed with by lowly slimes and goblins. His son cries out in alarm as the enraged leader prepares to enter the fray himself, leaping forward to take matters into his own hands. The leader dismisses the webs as petty tricks, noting that the traps have been revealed by the blood of his fallen companions and that he can easily tear through them with his own claws and teeth. Roaring at Rimuru not to get cocky, the wolf leader leaps high over the fence, vowing to tear the mere slime into shreds. The goblins watch in terror, crying out Rimuru's name as the massive wolf leader descends directly upon their master. The leader scoffs at Rimuru's apparent naivety, but his confidence shatters as he's suddenly stopped in midair, caught in an invisible trap. Rimuru coolly informs him that he's been caught by sticky silk. The powerful wolf leader finds himself completely unable to move. With the leader immobilized, Rimuru unleashes his skill, Water Blade. A high-speed jet of water slices cleanly through the wolf's neck, killing him instantly. The goblins stare in stunned silence as they realize he did it. As the leader's lifeless body falls to the ground, his son looks on in shock. Rimuru addresses the rest of the Fong wolf tribe, giving them a stark choice: submit or meet the same end. For a moment, Rimuru panics internally, realizing he might have made a mistake. Instead of scaring them off, he worries he may have just provoked the remaining wolves into a desperate fight-to-the-death charge. However, the leaderless wolves are frozen with indecision. Seeing his opportunity, Rimuru decides to give them a little push and activates his unique skill, Predator, on the corpse of their fallen leader. The Predator skill finishes its work, and a notification announces that the analysis of the Fong wolf tribe is complete. Pleased, Rimuru turns his attention back to the waiting pack. Having absorbed and analyzed the leader, Rimuru gains a new ability, Mimicry, Fong wolf, and begins to transform. Rimuru now stands before the pack in the form of a Fong wolf, looking almost identical to their former leader. He asks them what they think of his impression. In his new wolf form, Rimuru lets out a howl. He tells the pack that he won't force them to submit and that if they don't wish to, they should just leave quickly. Rimuru assumes this display will scare them away. To his utter shock, the entire pack bows in unison, with their new leader declaring that they will all submit to him. Rimuru observes his new, combined forces. The timid goblins and the fierce wolves have come together to form an unusual group full of wild flavors. Thinking about his next steps, Rimuru decides to organize the village. He asks the goblin elder for his name, but the elder explains that demons don't usually have them, which makes communication difficult. An idea strikes Rimuru. He announces his intention to give a name to every single one of them, causing the entire crowd of goblins and wolves to stare at him with sudden, intense focus. The crowd erupts with excitement. The elder asks if he's truly serious. Resigned to the enthusiastic response, Rimuru simply tells everyone to form a line. Rimuru starts the naming process. He recalls that the elder and his son are the family of the former strongest warrior, Liguru. He then bestows a name upon the father, Rigurdu. He continues down the line, naming the elder's son Riguru to carry on his brother's name. Acknowledging his poor naming sense, he quickly assigns names to the others: Gabuta, Gabut, Gabutsu, and more. Rigurdo the elder expresses concern. He knows Rimuru's magic is enormous, but warns that giving so many names at once is a heavy burden. Rimuru casually brushes off the worry. Rimuru can't ignore the joyful, ever-growing line of monsters waiting to be named. He notices a shy female goblin, Haruna, before turning his attention to the son of the slain wolf leader. Inspired, Rimuru gives the young wolf a powerful name worthy of his new role, Fong of the Storm or Runga. As the name is given, a massive surge of power erupts, shocking Rimuru himself. Suddenly, Rimuru feels an intense wave of weakness wash over him as his magic perception skill cuts off, leaving him blind and deaf to the world. As the concerned goblins cry out his name, he asks the great sage what happened, only to be told his body is switching to a low-activity mode to conserve his depleted magic. The great sage further explains that the predicted time until a complete recovery will be 3 days. Rimuru is stunned, lamenting that he had no idea giving out names would consume so much magic power, and belatedly recalling the elder's warning. He internally complains, wishing someone had told him this was common knowledge for demons. He then immediately corrects himself, admitting that they did, in fact, try to warn him. Lying on a soft bed of what feels like hay, Rimuru accepts his fate. Though he can't see or hear, he can feel that he is being well taken care of and resigns himself to the 3-day wait. While his body is being wiped clean, he fantasizes about being nursed by a beautiful woman. The reality, however, is that he's being cared for by goblins, a thought he finds surreal but is still happy about. 3 days later, Rimuru wakes up. A lovely, cheerful girl greets him, asking if he has recovered. Bouncing on her chest as she leans over, he is completely taken aback and wonders who this stranger is. The girl runs off to call for Liggerudo. Just then, the newly named goblin elder himself arrives, overjoyed that Rimuru has finally woken up. Still confused, Rimuru asks who the girl was. But Rimuru is cut short as he lays eyes on Liggerudo for the first time since waking up. The old, frail goblin is gone, replaced by a tall, incredibly muscular, and imposing figure. Rimuru is speechless, unable to believe this is the same person. As Liggerudo leads him outside for a celebratory feast, he notices that all the goblins look different, somehow much bigger and stronger than before. A deep, respectful voice calls out to him as a master. It is Ranga, who is overjoyed that Rimuru has recovered so quickly. Rimuru stammers out the wolf's name in disbelief. Ranga has evolved dramatically, now standing even larger and more powerful than his late father. Overwhelmed, Rimuru can only wonder what has happened to his followers. Following their evolution, Rigurdo, the former goblin elder, now a tall and strapping hobgoblin, checks on the feast preparations with a female goblin. He announces that their master, Rimuru, has finally awoken after the exhaustive process of naming them all. Rimuru, still processing the immense change, marvels at the power he wields. Just by granting names, he caused the male goblins to evolve into powerful hobgoblins, and the females into graceful goblinas. The power of demons was truly amazing. The scene opens on Chapter 4, titled Destination Dwarven Kingdom. Rimuru, in his slime form, is comfortably using the fluffy fur of the newly evolved Stormfang wolf, Ranga, as a pillow. Ranga, who gained his form and power after being named, sleeps soundly, no longer just a wild beast but a loyal companion. To celebrate the end of the battle against the direwolves and the evolution of the goblins, a grand feast is held. The new hobgoblins eagerly gather, ready to raise a toast to their new beginning. As the hobgoblins shout cheers, they all stare intently at Rimuru, making the slime feel incredibly embarrassed. Rigurdo, confused by the gesture, leans in and asks Rimuru what cheers actually means, revealing they were simply mimicking a word they didn't understand. Rigurdo then demonstrates to the others, telling them to lift their cups high. Rimuru has a moment of self-reflection, realizing that the common sense and customs from his past life in Japan held no meaning in this new world. As the party continues, Rimuru takes a closer look at the state of the goblin village. The food was either raw or simply roasted, and their huts were tattered and crude. He also notes the hobgoblins' minimal clothing, thinking they don't seem to have any sense of shame. The next day, Rigurdo gathers everyone in the village square. He announces that their master, Rimuru, has important things to say. It was clear that a lot of problems needed to be fixed. The hobgoblins and the now docile Stormfang wolves gather, chattering amongst themselves and wondering what important news Rimuru could have. Ranga lies patiently, waiting for his master to speak. The crowd is rowdy, still buzzing from the previous day's feast and praising Rimuru. In an attempt to appear more authoritative, Rimuru has fashioned a fake mustache for himself, but it only seems to confuse the hobgoblins further. As the crowd continues to clamor, someone finally tells them to be quiet. Rimuru lets out a weary sigh, noting that it took a full 5 minutes for everyone to settle down. Rimuru internally questions if his attempt at an authoritative, principle-like act had any effect at all. Deciding it was a failure, he quickly tosses the fake mustache aside and resolves to change the topic, a high-level skill for any capable adult. Now, with everyone's attention, Rimuru gets to the point. He declares that since they have grown into such a huge family, he will have to set up some rules to prevent any troubles from happening. Rimuru lays down the first two rules for his new nation. Firstly, there will be no infighting among themselves. Secondly, they are not to look down upon other races, even though they have evolved and become powerful. Finally, Rimuru announces the third and most crucial rule. They are not to attack humans. With all three rules stated, he quietly waits to see how his followers will react to this surprising command. Just as Rimuru expected, a question comes from the crowd. Gabuchi, a hobgoblin wearing a bandana, raises his hand and asks why they are forbidden from attacking humans. Rimuru is inwardly pleased. The fact that Gabuchi asked a question meant that they were taking his words seriously and truly listening. Beside him, Rigurdo clenches his fist, watching the exchange intently. Rimuru gives a very simple reason. He likes humans. That's all. To his surprise, Gabuchi seems to immediately understand and accept this straightforward answer. Rimuru then decides to elaborate with a more practical explanation. He reminds them that humans live in large communities and would surely retaliate in great numbers if attacked, a force they would be unable to handle on their own. Rimuru states that integrating with humans would be beneficial, thus he forbids them from attacking first. He internally admits the real reason is because he was originally human. With the explanation complete, the crowd, including Ranga, roars in agreement. With the new laws drafted, Rimuru moves on to the next order of business, assigning responsibilities for the village's security, hunting, and general oversight. For this, he calls upon Rigurdo. Rimuru officially appoints Rigurdo as the Goblin Village Chief, trusting him to supervise the village wisely. Rigurdo is so moved by this honor that he blushes, a mix of pride and humility on his face. Overcome with emotion, Rigurdo falls to his knees, vowing to complete this mission no matter what. Rimuru reflects that a ruler who reigns without ruling is a great saying, but he also knows he must guide them so they can eventually stand on their own. He also makes a mental note to visit Human Town someday. However, a new problem immediately presents itself. Despite having a new chief and new laws, the hobgoblins can only stare at their dilapidated huts, completely unsure of how to begin rebuilding their homes. Rigurdo holds his head in his hands, embarrassed by their lack of skill. He knows that without any knowledge of architecture, this is their limit. Rimuru understands the predicament, recalling his past life as a project manager. He couldn't properly guide them if he didn't understand their abilities, and it was clear they lacked any builders. The question now was, where could they find one? As Rimuru ponders the need for skilled workers, Rigurdo has a flash of insight. He remembers that some goblins used to trade with others and suggests they might know about architecture. Ranga perks up, asking who these trading partners were. The answer is the dwarves. Ranga asks for clarification on who these trading partners, the dwarf race, are. Ranga asks if these are the dwarves known for their exceptional smithing skills. Rigurdo is impressed that Rimuru knows of them, but Rimuru sheepishly admits his knowledge only comes from games and movies from his previous life. Having made a decision, Rimuru declares he will go and negotiate with the dwarves directly, leaving Rigurdo in charge of preparations. The journey to the Dwarven Kingdom normally takes 2 months, but with incredible speed of the Stormfang wolves, it should be much shorter. Rigurdo vows to have everything ready by noon. And just like that, the journey begins. Rimuru travels toward the Dwarven Kingdom with 5 followers. To avoid falling off at their breakneck speed of 80 kilometers per hour, he uses his sticky silk to secure himself to Ranga's back. While riding Ranga was thrilling, going downhill at such a speed was a genuinely scary experience for Rimuru. As he held on for dear life, he glanced over at the goblins riding alongside him and was amazed by what he saw. Worried about their stamina, Rimuru finds it hard to communicate at this speed. He then remembers a skill he obtained from the Fang Wolf tribe, telepathy. He uses it to check on his companions, and Gabuta responds, surprised to hear his master's voice in his head. Gabuta reassures Rimuru that they don't need to worry. He explains that thanks to their recent evolution, they aren't feeling fatigued at all. Curious, Rimuru asks Gabuta about Rigger's elder brother, who had also received a name from someone else. He asks if he evolved as well. Gabuta confirms that he did, but clarifies that the evolution wasn't as significant as theirs. Gabuta explains that the elder brother was named by an officer of the Demon Lord's army named Jermiust. This revelation makes Rimuru realize 2 things. The extent of evolution varies depending on the power of the one granting the name, and more importantly, that a demon lord's army exists. Rimuru contemplates the existence of the demon lord's army. He assumes such a force would likely aim to rule the world by attacking human nations, and he wonders which side he would find himself on if that time ever came. Later, as the group rests by a campfire, Rimuru turns to his guide. He asks Gabuta to tell him about the Dwarven Kingdom, since he had been there before to trade. Startled but happy to share, Gabuta explains that the kingdom's official name is the Armament Nation of Dworgen. He describes it as a beautiful city built inside a massive, naturally formed cavern. He continues, adding that the city isn't just home to dwarves. There are also many humans and, to Rimuru's delight, elves. While Rimuru gets lost in daydreams of beautiful elves, he wonders if it's truly alright for monsters like them to enter the city. Gabuta assures him there's no need to worry, as the king's authority prohibits all fighting within the kingdom. Rimuru is impressed to learn that, according to rumors, the dwarven army led by the king has never once lost in 1,000 years. It's no wonder that few would be foolish enough to provoke the unrivaled dwarven king. Gabuta confidently states that as long as they mind their own business, there won't be any trouble, though he quietly mutters that he was harassed the last time he went by himself. Rimuru senses that Gabuta's unreliability may have just raised a flag for future trouble, but for now, they decide to rest. 3 days pass since they departed from the goblin village. The group has traveled far, and now a huge mountain range looms in the distance, marking the next stage of their journey. As they draw closer, they find vast open grasslands stretching out at the foot of the mountain range. Realizing that a group of hobgoblins and loincloths accompanied by giant wolves would be far too conspicuous, Rimuru makes a decision. He instructs Riguru and the others to camp at the forest's entrance while he and Gabuta proceed into the city alone. Gabuta seems nervous about being separated from the main group, and Rimuru feels a bit bad for leaving them behind. But he knows it's a necessary precaution for them to enter the city unnoticed. The two of them arrive at the entrance to Dworgen. A human guard at the checkpoint waves the person ahead of them through, then sternly calls out, "You may enter next." The line to get in is barely moving, and the inspection process appears to be quite strict. As they wait, a commotion starts when someone in the crowd points them out, shouting that there are demons in the line. Their demonic appearance draws the wrong kind of attention. A pair of shady adventurers approach them, seeing an easy mark. One of them smirks, suggesting they should get rid of the demons right here, outside the city walls. He menacingly tells them to drop their luggage and scram if they value their lives. While Gabuta panics at the sudden confrontation, Rimuru remains perfectly calm. Internally, he notes that by picking a fight with them, these human hoodlums have just raised a massive death flag for themselves. Our protagonist, Rimuru, finds himself in a bind. After getting entangled with some hoodlums, he has inexplicably been thrown into jail, leaving him to wonder just why this happened. And he's not alone. Next to him, his goblin companion, Gobda, is tied up inside a jail cell, equally bewildered by the turn of events that led them to be imprisoned. Chapter 5: Dwarven Artisan. The story continues with the wonderful travels of a slime and a goblin, teasing the encounters with elves and dwarves that await them in this country of gears. A stern-looking man questions them. This is the Dwarven Kingdom's guard captain, Kaitu, and he wants to hear their side of the story. Rimuru, speaking from inside a beer barrel, identifies Captain Kaitu as the very person who stuffed him in there and threw him in jail. He insists that he's done nothing wrong and that this is all a misunderstanding, as they were only waiting in line at the entry inspection site. The scene flashes back to explain what happened. Rimuru and his party were standing in line when a group of adventurers approached, wondering if there were demons in the city. The adventurers picked a fight, demanding Gobta drop his luggage. As Gobta prepares to retaliate, Rimuru reminds him of the third rule he laid out: do not attack humans. The adventurers mock Gobta, calling him a mere mob demon. Sensing trouble, Rimuru tells Gobta to close his eyes and cover his ears. The men then turn their attention to Rimuru, questioning if he is the mob they're referring to. They mockingly call him a slime, the trashiest of all mobs, surprised that it can even talk. One of the adventurers threatens Mr. Slime, believing he needs to be taught a lesson, while his companion confirms that no matter how he looks at it, Rimuru is just a slime. A dark aura begins to emanate from Rimuru as he asks, "Since when did you mistake me for a slime?" The adventurers, now on guard, demand he show them his true form. Rimuru calmly replies that their assessment wasn't entirely wrong, just before a massive explosion erupts from his body, sending a shockwave outwards. The adventurers are stunned into silence, caught completely off guard by the slime's sudden display of power. From the smoke and dust emerges a massive beast. Using his mimicry skill, Rimuru has taken on the fearsome appearance of a black storm starwolf, taunting the men with his fake true form. Now transformed into a wolf, Rimuru hopes his intimidating appearance will be enough to scare them off without him having to hold back his power. But the bluff fails. The lead adventurer, believing it's just an illusion, rallies his comrades. They aren't scared and decide to attack the wolf together, launching a fireball and a wind slash. The attacks have no effect. Getting annoyed by the noise, Rimuru lets out a powerful howl, declaring that enough is enough. The force of his roar sends the adventurers flying, their faces contorted in fear as they are blasted away and consumed by a dark energy. Surveying the aftermath, Rimuru notes the devastating effect of his intimidate skill. 14 escaped, 6 with mental disorders, and 5 rendered unconscious. He comically decides it's best not to talk about the victim report. Just as the chaos subsides, a squad of Dwarven Kingdom guards appears, ordering them to stop. Rimuru and Gobta are caught in a very compromising situation, surrounded by the defeated adventurers. Back in the present, Captain Kaitu finishes listening to Rimuru's story. He concedes that the slime's account of what happened is roughly the same as the witness testimonies. Suddenly, a guard rushes in, shouting for the captain. He breathlessly reports that there's been a big accident in the mine. Captain Kaitu is shocked as the guard explains that armored dinosaurs have appeared. A patrol team has already been sent to subjugate them before they can run out of the city. While the guards discuss the crisis, Rimuru and Gobta are completely ignored in their cell. They listen as the guard reports that miners who went deep for magic or have been severely injured. Captain Kaitu cries out in worry for Garam and the others. Kaitu passionately declares he can't let them die, calling them his own brothers. However, he laments that due to warring funds, there isn't enough recovery medicine. Hearing this, an opportunity presents itself, and Rimuru listens intently from inside his barrel. Seeing his chance, Rimuru slips out, pulling on Captain Kaitu's cape to get his attention. When Kaitu asks in surprise why he came out, Rimuru dismisses it, saying now isn't the time to worry about that. He then reveals what he has to offer, a barrel full of sparkling, great-quality recovery medicine that can be drunk directly. He presents it as the very thing Kaitu has been looking for. Kaitu is skeptical, noting that not many people would want to try medicine of an unknown origin, especially one provided by a demon. Rimuru presses him, asking if he's really okay with his friends being in danger. This convinces Kaitu, who tells his men to take the medicine and lead the way, deciding to trust the strange slime. With the guards gone, Rimuru easily slips through the bars. Having had nothing to do for an hour, he'd been practicing with his threads, managing to reach a high level. He comically stretches his body to resemble the Tokyo Tower before slithering out. Sometime later, Kaitu and the rescued dwarven miners find Rimuru and Gobta, bowing deeply. They thank him profusely, exclaiming that he saved their lives. One of the miners, Garm, shows off his fully recovered arm, saying it's unbelievable how quickly it healed after being cut to shreds. He is immensely grateful, knowing he would have died without Rimuru's medicine. Another one of the 3 brothers, Dold, nods emphatically, speechless with gratitude. Kaitu admits it's the first time he's ever seen such an amazing medicine. Thanks to this incident, a bond of trust has started to form between Kaitu and Rimuru. By the dawn of the second day, the group was released thanks to Kaijin's recommendation. They decide to visit a smithery, entering the amazing, bustling city of the dwarfs. As they walk through the streets, Kaitu remarks on the civilized atmosphere of the Dwarven Kingdom. Rimuru is particularly impressed by the weapons and armor, noticing that even the edges of the swords for sale are faintly glowing. Kaitu points to an impressive sword and shield on display, telling Rimuru that they were made by the very blacksmith they are about to meet. One of the 3 dwarven brothers, Mild, approaches a workshop and calls out for his big bro, finding him busy at work inside. A burly, focused dwarf with goggles on his head turns around. This is the weapon-creating artisan, Kaijin. He recognizes Kaitu, but tells him he's too busy to talk and to come back another day if it's not urgent. The rescued dwarves, who apparently work there, recognize their savior. Garm introduces him to Kaijin, explaining that this is Master Rimuru, the slime who saved them yesterday. Though he can't stop his work, Kaijin expresses his gratitude. One of the brothers suggests he take a small break to discuss things with them. Garm urges his pops to listen, reminding him that this slime provided an inconceivable kind of medicine. Intrigued, Kaijin agrees to hear what they have to say, figuring it can't hurt to ask if he might be able to help them. Kaijin explains his predicament. He has to deliver 20 longswords by the end of the week, but he doesn't have nearly enough materials to complete the job. He slumps in despair, explaining that this is a task assigned by the nation. The consequences of failing to deliver after accepting the job are unimaginable. Rimuru points to a pile of swords and asks if they are no good. Kaijin clarifies that those are just steel swords. The commission this time is to forge long swords using the rare material, magic steel. When Rimuru asks to see one, Kaijin reveals that they only have one in stock. He presents a beautifully crafted sword that gives off a faint glow. Kaijin explains that a sword made with magic steel as its core is one that grows and assimilates with its user. The other dwarves look on with desire, noting that Kaijin had initially refused the difficult job. The reason for Kaijin's troubles is revealed to be a bastard minister by the name of Bester, who seems to be plotting Kaijin's downfall with a smug look. Kaijin despairs, lamenting that he boasted and accepted the order in front of the king, and now has less than 5 days left. It turns out the minister Bester bought out all the magic steel specifically to frame him. Seeing this, Rimuru consults with Great Sage. A thought strikes Rimuru. He wonders if the ores he constantly ate back in Veldora's cave could be what he's looking for. He consults Great Sage, who provides the answer. Those are extremely pure magic ores that formed by absorbing magic essence from the individual named Veldora. Bingo! Rimuru realizes that through refining, those ores can become magic steel. A solution clicks into place. With newfound confidence, he turns to the astonished dwarf and makes a startling proposition. Is Kaijin willing to come to Rimuru's village and become its technology director? Without waiting for an answer, Rimuru swallows the one complete magic steel sword. Kaijin is shocked, but Rimuru states that he really likes the sword the old man forged. After a quick product analysis, Great Sage confirms the materials and asks to proceed with duplication. Rimuru then sucks up the regular steel swords as well, intending to recycle them. With a resounding yes, Rimuru unleashes his power, and in a massive gust of wind and energy, the dwarves are blown back, completely stunned by the incredible spectacle. In an instant, it's over. 20 perfect copies of the magic steel longsword are laid out before them. Rimuru calmly states that he won't force Kaijin to accept his offer, but asks him to think about it, leaving the entire group of dwarves speechless at the complete and utter spectacle they just witnessed. Following their success, Kaijin the dwarf insists on treating Rimuru as a reward. Rimuru questions the offer, but Kaijin explains it's all thanks to him that they could complete the order. Internally, Rimuru doesn't mind, since he can't taste anything anyway. The dwarves get excited about their destination, a place with lots of beautiful girls, from young and cute to mature and beautiful. Rimuru, with a goblin peeking from behind, sighs and resigns himself to keeping them company. They arrive at a lively bar run by elves. The beautiful elf women immediately flock to Rimuru, captivated by his cute slime form and showering him with affection. While being held by the elves, Rimuru gets flustered. He realizes they're elves and excitedly notes how thin their clothes are, finding the situation both bad and thrilling. Rimuru internally panics, wondering why his magic perception skill isn't working as he'd like. He's frustrated that the elf women skillfully manage to hide all the important parts, seeing it as a personal challenge. From a distance, Kaijin watches the scene of Rimuru being swarmed by the adoring elf girls. He smiles, commenting that it's great as long as Rimuru is having fun. As the group celebrates, they all express their gratitude to Master Rimuru. Kaijin raises his glass, admitting his admiration for Rimuru's ability to mass-produce swords in seconds, a feat that far surpassed his own best work. An elf girl beside him reaffirms that Kaijin is still the best blacksmith. Kaijin brings up Rimuru's previous invitation to his village. The elf hostess then playfully teases Rimuru, noting that even if he can't taste anything, having beautiful girls pour his drinks makes everything delicious. Rimuru quietly observes Kaijin, reflecting on his character. He recognizes Kaijin as a man who values friendship and loyalty and decides not to pressure him into joining his village, respecting his relationship with his benefactor, the king. Resting on an elf girl's lap, Rimuru feels that this experience is reward enough. A rolling ball of thread serves as a reminder of Gabuta, who is stuck watching the house, making Rimuru feel it's a bit unfair. One of the elf girls approaches with a large crystal ball, asking Mr. Slime if he wants to play a game with it. Rimuru's interest is piqued. Another elf, a dark-skinned woman, explains that it's for fortune-telling, a very popular activity she is quite good at. Rimuru is surprised but intrigued. Rimuru asks what she intends to foretell for him. The elf holding him excitedly suggests that they find out about his fated person. Rimuru's mind immediately jumps to one conclusion. To him, a fated person means a wife. He gets lost in thought, wondering if he, as a slime, will finally get married in this life. His imagination conjures a cute pink female version of himself before he crashes back to reality, remembering that slimes are genderless and questioning how they even reproduce. The thought makes him chuckle. He realizes that in a way, his fateful encounter with the storm dragon Veldora could also be considered a fated meeting. The fortune-telling begins as the crystal ball glows. Rimuru looks on, anxiously wondering if the vision will indeed reveal his future wife. The crystal ball reveals the faces of a group of humans. They all share a grim, serious expression. The vision focuses on one individual, a young woman with short black hair, holding a distinctive mask. Rimuru watches the image intently. Rimuru is struck by a powerful sense of familiarity. He feels he knows this woman, comparing the feeling to the last dream from his past life. He notes with surprise that she looks very similar to his own human transformation. Kaijin suddenly recognizes the figure in the crystal ball. He exclaims that it's the ruler of explosive flames, a hero named Shizue Izawa. The group discusses the famous hero. The elves mention that despite her youthful looks, she has been active for decades. Rimuru deduces she's likely retired and is now mentoring new talent somewhere. Rimuru realizes that Shizue Izawa is a Japanese name. As the elf girls tease him about caring so much for his fated person, his mind connects the dots. She's from the same world as his former self. Blushing, Rimuru admits that he does care. He thinks to himself that if she's truly from the same world he was, then he must meet her one day. The thought fills him with a new sense of purpose. But just as this new resolve settles in, the pleasant atmosphere is shattered. A man shouts from the entrance, angrily demanding to know why the hostess is allowing a demon into her establishment, his glare fixed on Rimuru's group. The man, Minister Bester, confronts the hostess. He questions whether slimes aren't considered demons. The elf hostess tries to de-escalate, explaining that while Rimuru is a demon, he's a very gentlemanly slime. Rimuru immediately recognizes the pompous man as Minister Bester, the rumored schemer who had previously tried to frame Kaijin. Kaijin also looks on with clear disdain. Muttering that Rimuru seems jumpy, Bester walks to the bar and grabs a pitcher of water. He then deliberately walks over and splashes the entire pitcher onto Rimuru. Standing over the drenched party, Bester declares with a smug look that this is the proper way to treat demons, holding up the empty pitcher. The elf girls are flustered by the sudden assault. Rimuru, though soaked, reassures the elf holding him that he's fine and asks if her dress got wet. As the elf girls stare, Rimuru tries to keep a calm exterior, telling them not to worry. Internally, however, he's seething with rage and on the verge of exploding. Rimuru holds himself back, realizing he can't cause trouble for Kaijin and the bar's hostess. Just as he calms down, Minister Bester spots Kaijin and approaches with a fake, condescending greeting. Kaijin, unable to contain his anger any longer, lunges forward. He throws a powerful punch directly at Minister Bester's face as his friends and the elves watch in stunned silence. The force of the punch sends Bester flying, crashing into a table and scattering everything. Kaijin stands over the fallen minister, furiously yelling at him for daring to bother his benefactor. His face contorted with rage, Kaijin lets out a furious cry, terrifying the downed Minister Bester. As guards drag Bester away, Kaijin apologizes to the hostess for the mess, but she assures him it's fine. His friends are worried, pointing out that since he assaulted a minister, he won't be able to stay in the country. With a confident wink towards Rimuru, Kaijin dismisses their concerns. He reminds Rimuru that a place for him has already been prepared in his village. An elf girl questions his loyalty to the king, but Kaijin explains his principles. He argues that he can't serve the king happily if he doesn't value his benefactor, and that failing to act would have brought shame upon the king himself. Kaijin declares he was just waiting for those words and formally asks Master Rimuru to take him along. Rimuru happily accepts. As they decide to have another round, Bester is finally removed from the premises. Later, one of the dwarves, now in custody, reflects on the events. He notes that despite their attempt to act cool, assaulting a country's minister was obviously not an offense that would be ignored. Inside the palace, Kaijin remains defiant, stating he was only disciplining a Morin. As a result of his actions, the entire group has been brought before the authorities. 2 days later, the trial begins. Kaijin, the other dwarves, and Rimuru are brought into a grand hall to stand before the king's throne. As he stands in the throne room, Rimuru sweats nervously. He admits to himself that on this day, for the first time since arriving in this new world, he truly felt the sensation of danger. The figure on the throne is revealed, Gazelle Dwargo, the current king of the Armament Kingdom of Dworgen. A close-up on his sharp, intense eyes confirms Rimuru's fears. This man is undoubtedly very strong. The trial begins. A suspicious man in a gaudy suit, acting as the prosecutor, states that in this court, one is judged guilty the moment they speak. It is a system, he claims, roughly comparable to lawyers, but much scarier. From behind the bars of the defendant's box, Kaijin and his friends watch on. They admit to themselves that their representative is indeed very suspicious, but Kaijin tries to remain optimistic, hoping the man is more competent than he appears. The prosecutor makes his case with a theatrical shout, accusing Kaijin and his company of instigating trouble and enacting violence against Minister Besta, who he claims was just visiting their shop to relax. A court official asks if this is true, and the prosecutor confirms they have written records. Meanwhile, Minister Besta, sitting with a bandage on his head, smirks to himself, confident that his plan to buy out the lawyers and frame Kaijin is working perfectly. The scene shifts to Kaijin explaining the backstory to Rimuru. He reveals that Minister Besta, a shrewd man, was once his subordinate when he worked as the palace's worker group's captain. Kaijin continues his story, explaining that Besta, born a marquis, was resentful of working under someone from a peasant family. Impatient for achievement, Besta initiated a grand project to create a magic golem soldier, which ultimately ended in failure. Rimuru asks if Besta was punished for the failure. Kaijin explains that Besta bribed military staff and created false evidence, leaving Kaijin with no choice but to bear the responsibility and resign from military service. Rimuru is shocked to hear that all the responsibility fell on Kaijin. Kaijin adds that at that difficult time, it was his friends, the same ones in the defendant's box with him now, who stood by him and tried to defend him, even if they are all idiots. The group laughs about the memory, having all been kicked out of the army together. Kaijin reflects that Besta isn't a bad person, just impatient and zealous. Rimuru listens, finally understanding the complex history between them. Back in the present, Besta points at the defendants, demanding the king deliver a severe punishment. He insists they are bad people, and their accusations are baseless. Kaijin and his friends can only listen, unable to speak in their own defense. Just then, the imposing figure on the throne, the dwarf king, Gazelle Dwargo, speaks up. Acknowledging Kaijin's point about answering the king's questions, he addresses his former captain directly, asking how he has been. Overjoyed, Kaijin bows deeply, expressing his happiness at seeing the king in good health. The king then asks if Kaijin has any plans on coming back to serve him. Besta looks on in shock. Kaijin, though grateful, respectfully declines the king's offer. He declares that he has already found a new master, and even if it's the king's order, he cannot turn his back on him. King Gazelle sighs, accepting the decision. With the personal matter settled, he moves on to his official duty, preparing to declare the judgment. The king delivers his verdict. Kaijin and his companions are to be exiled. They will not be allowed to stay in the nation after the date changes tonight. He dismisses them, declaring the judgment over. With the king's loud command, the trial comes to an end. The sheer overbearing presence of the ruler fills the room as Kaijin and his friends turn to leave the courtroom. As the group silently exits, King Gazelle watches them go. He admits to himself that their departure makes him feel a little lonely, revealing the personal cost of his royal duty. After a moment of silence, the king turns his attention to the remaining figure in the room, calling out to a surprised Minister Besta. The king tells Besta to take a look at something. He presents a vial of potion, revealing it's the very thing that completely healed the injured miners. Besta stares in disbelief. Besta is stunned. He recognizes it as a complete recovery medicine, a level of potion that even the dwarves' advanced technology cannot produce. He desperately demands to know the method of creating it. The king coldly replies that it's unfortunate they have already lost the subjects who know this method, referring to the exiled dwarfs. Panicked, Besta blurts out that the one who brought the potion was the slime, Rimuru. King Gazelle stares down at him, stating that because of Besta's actions, the kingdom's contact with that demon, Rimuru, has already been severed. The weight of his mistake hits Besta with full force. The king asks Besta if he has anything to say for himself. But Besta, overwhelmed with regret and the consequences of his envy, can only stammer, unable to form a coherent response. Besta's mind flashes back to his youth. We saw the triumphant king and swore an oath. Now, in the present, he stands alone in the dark, lamenting that he can't even respond to the king he once idolized. The flashback continues, showing a young, wide-eyed Besta full of admiration for King Gazelle. He remembers his earnest vow to one day work for and contribute to that great king, a promise that now hangs heavy in the air. Breaking the silence, King Gazelle asks Besta once again if he has anything to say. Besta, understanding that his past admiration has led to this moment of judgment, can only say, "Ah, that's it." Besta finally confesses. He admits that he has nothing to say in his defense, acknowledging that ever since he became jealous of Kaijin, he has gone down the wrong path. The king clenches his armored fist in response. The king delivers his final judgment to Besta. In light of his work until now, he is not to be executed, but he is banished from the palace and forbidden from ever appearing before the king again. As the disgraced Besta kneels alone in the great hall, the king looks back one last time and says, "You've worked hard," a quiet acknowledgement of his former minister's past service. Turning away, the king gives a new command to a shadowy figure from his secret division. He orders them to monitor the demons, Rimuru's, movements with haste, stressing that they must not be discovered at any cost. Meanwhile, Rimuru reflects on the king's actions. He compares the dwarf king to the storm dragon Veldora, realizing that with his skills, he couldn't see the depth of the king's heart. He was a true monster of a ruler. Leaving the city, Rimuru thinks that while he expected something to happen, the overall result of the trial was about what he expected, even with the ban from entering the kingdom. Outside, Rimuru meets up with some of his goblin followers. He jokes that seeing them safe must be karma for doing good deeds every day. He then realizes he hasn't properly introduced his new companions to his old ones. Rimuru casually introduces the Storm Fong wolf race to the dwarfs. Kaijin is completely shocked, staring wide-eyed at the massive, intelligent wolves, unable to comprehend the situation. Seeing Kaijin's reaction, Rimuru decides to continue the introductions. He presents Garm, the eldest of the three dwarf brothers, who is a highly skilled protective gearsmith. Next, Rimuru introduces the other two brothers. The second brother is Doldo, whose art and craft skills are among the best in the dwarven race. The third is Mild, who is ingenious and familiar with construction and aesthetics. One of the goblins praises Master Rimuru. Rimuru explains that since Kaijin was the only one promised to him, but his friends couldn't stay in the kingdom anyway, he dragged them all along. The entire group, now united, heads for home. After only a few days away, they already miss the goblin village. As they approach, Rimuru gets a nagging feeling that he's forgotten something. Suddenly, a small goblin riding a direwolf cries out, exclaiming how cruel Rimuru is. It's the thing he forgot. Rimuru remembers. It's Gabuta, who complains that he almost cried from fear when the scary dwarven soldiers came over. He accuses Rimuru of being too cruel for leaving him behind. Rimuru apologizes and promises to take a crying Gabuta to that shop with a lot of beautiful elf sisters next time. Gabuta is instantly cheered up, but Rimuru notes to himself that since they are banned from the Dwarven Kingdom, that promise will have to wait for the distant future. The scene shifts to the Burman Kingdom, inside the Freedom Association branch. The branch master, Fitz, is addressing his subordinates. He gives them 3 days of vacation, after which they are to go investigate in the forest again. Fitz dismisses the trio of adventurers. One of them, a large man with long blonde hair, grumbles that he wanted to complain to the guildmaster directly, but they leave as ordered. As the 3 adventurers walk through the town, they complain about their short vacation, knowing they have to return to that dangerous forest in just 3 days. As they walk, a mysterious woman with long dark hair approaches them. She calls out, asking if they are planning on going to the Great Jura Forest. The woman, who wears a strange mask over her face, introduces herself as Shizu. She politely asks the adventurers if they would allow her to travel together with them, as the footsteps of destiny bring new players toward Rimuru's forest.